In the summer of 1972, a quiet Ohio suburb was shaken to its core. A woman's body was discovered in a local park, but what investigators found at the scene was stranger than anyone could have imagined. Beside the victim lay a cassette tape and a single sheet of handwritten music. No fingerprints, no witnesses, just an eerie melody signed by someone calling themselves the composer. The tape contained a haunting piano piece, unlike anything the detectives had ever heard. It wasn't a popular song or a classical work. It was entirely original. As they listened, a chill ran down their spines. The music told a different story than the brutal crime scene before them. It spoke of passion, of genius, and of something deeply unsettling lurking beneath the surface. For months, the case went nowhere. The victim had no known enemies, and the mysterious music left more questions than answers. But just as the trail began to grow cold, another body turned up in Indiana. Once again, a cassette tape and sheet music were found nearby. The pattern was undeniable. A killer was on the loose, and he was using music as his calling card. Over the next 9 years, a string of similar murders would plague the Midwest. Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, no state seemed safe from the composer's reach. Each crime scene was meticulously staged, with the victim posed as if they were part of some macabre orchestra. The tapes evolved too, sometimes featuring strings or distorted sounds that sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened detectives. But the music wasn't the only way the killer communicated. Letters began arriving at newspaper offices and police stations across the region. Written in flowing script, they were filled with musical terminology and dark metaphors. One line appeared in nearly every message: "They hear me, but they don't listen." It was as if the murderer was conducting a symphony of death, with each victim a note in his twisted composition. The FBI was brought in, their behavioral analysts working overtime to build a profile of the killer, male likely in his 30s, the background in music. Perhaps a failed musician or former teacher with a grudge against the world that had rejected him. But every lead they pursued seemed to dissolve into thin air. The composer was always one step ahead, leaving nothing but haunting melodies in his wake. What baffled investigators most was the quality of the music itself. This wasn't the work of an amateur or a copycat. Each piece was entirely original, showcasing a level of talent that seemed at odds with the brutality of the crimes. Music experts brought in to analyze the compositions were reluctant to admit it, but there was a twisted genius at work here. As the years went by, theories began to multiply. One private investigator became convinced that the key to cracking the case lay hidden within the music itself. He spent countless hours poring over spectrograms of the recordings, searching for visual clues that might be invisible to the naked ear. Others focused on the distortion present in some of the tapes, wondering if it might be concealing a second voice, evidence of an accomplice. But the technology of the time wasn't advanced enough to fully unravel the mystery. Each new discovery only seemed to add another layer of complexity to the case. The composer remained elusive, a phantom who communicated through music, but left no trace of his true identity behind. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the killing spree came to an abrupt halt. In the winter of 1981, nearly a decade after the first murder, a final tape was discovered. This one was different. No body, no sheet music, just a cassette left on the steps of a police station. When investigators played it, their blood ran cold. The tape contained nothing but a single piano note, played over and over again in a maddening loop. Was this the composer's swan song? Had he grown tired of his deadly concerto? Or had something, or someone, finally silenced him for good? The questions multiplied, but answers remained frustratingly out of reach. In the years that followed, the case of the composer would become the stuff of true crime legend. Armchair detectives and professional investigators alike pored over every scrap of evidence, desperate to make sense of the musical murders that had terrorized the Midwest for nearly a decade. Some believed that the killer must have been a classically trained composer, perhaps someone who had been rejected by the academic music world and sought revenge through his gruesome performances. Others were convinced that they were dealing with a duo, one musical genius paired with a cold-blooded killer, working in tandem to create their masterpiece of murder. But the most chilling theory of all came from those who insisted that the composer's work had never truly ended. They pointed to anonymous pieces of music that occasionally surfaced online, claiming to hear echoes of that same haunting style. Could the killer still be out there? His deadly symphony merely an intermission? As the years turned to decades, the case of the composer grew colder than ever. Those who had worked it in its early days retired or passed away, taking their insights and theories with them. A new generation of investigators occasionally reopened the files, drawn in by the magnetic pull of the unsolved mystery, but the music remained stubbornly silent on the identity of its creator. For the families of the victims, the lack of closure was a wound that never fully healed. They were left to wonder about the person who had turned their loved ones into unwilling players in his twisted orchestra. What drove him? What did the music mean? And would they ever truly know why their lives had been shattered by a killer who spoke through melodies instead of words? In the end, the case of the composer serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind even the most beautiful of art forms. It stands as a testament to the power of music to move us, for better or for worse, and it leaves us with a haunting question. In the grand composition of life and death, who truly holds the conductor's baton? No one knows who the composer really was, but they all remember his sound. It echoes through time, a reminder that some mysteries are destined to remain unresolved, their final notes hanging in the air like a question mark that may never find its answer. The music of the composer has long since faded away, but the silence it left behind speaks volumes about the nature of evil and the enduring power of an unsolved crime to capture our collective imagination.